China Mission 2 but Deathless. So for this one we can't lose any units, I can't build any units or buildings, I can't capture GLA buildings, and I can't occupy unmanned vehicles. So pretty straightforward rules, let's go. So for this map, GLA has 4 bases in the 4 corners of the map, and we have to destroy those 4 bases. And normally you would wait for the reinforcements to arrive, and then that way you can build up your army to destroy those bases. But since we're doing this Deathless, I kind of need to rush those GLA bases to prevent them from building those units that will attack me. So with that, I'm sending a good chunk of my units to the top right corner, the bottom right corner, and the bottom left corner. Now the nuke cannons are actually, like, they can be a little bit weird at times, but they are kind of my best units, because they're going to be within range of a lot of these GLA buildings that other units might not be able to get to without, you know, getting attacked by GLA base defenses or GLA units. Now, back at main base, I'm getting my infantry inside bunkers and then just trying to make sure that they're, you know, safe and defended and they can not die. So with my nuke cannons in the top right corner, I want them to just alternate between neutron and nuclear shells, so then I can cover the GLA vehicles and also cover the buildings. Now with the top right corner, if anyone was wondering, the troop crawler is only there because of muscle memory. In other attempts I would just try and take out the top right and the bottom left corner, and I would try and move down south with these units, but it was too slow. I would lose a unit before I even reach this bottom right corner. So this is why it's so tricky to try and manage all of these units. You gotta babysit 3 like small armies, and then also babysit your main base to make sure the GLA don't destroy anything. So yeah, a little bit tricky, and I guess I could have tried to go for the top left, the top left corner, but yeah, I think it was just too much to handle, too much to ask. So for me, this was kind of a frustrating mission to beat because of RNG. So the GLA will sometimes build their army from one base, other times they'll build it from another base, and in my case, I just kept getting a lot of attempts where they kept building their army from the bases that I was attacking, which slowed down the process of me destroying those bases, because I'd have to redirect my fire on those GLA units so then they don't use those units to attack me while I'm attacking them. So yeah, that's why it was kind of frustrating. Now on the map we've got the listening outposts that have appeared, so that's another thing to the mission, is we actually can't get near those listening outposts, because what happens is a bunch of GLA units and Chinese units will appear out of thin air, and so if you make that happen, then the GLA units will destroy those Chinese units and it will result in you taking a death. So I basically have to do this mission and also avoid going anywhere near those spots. So with the nuke cannon in the bottom left corner, we've taken out the barracks and the arms dealer, and we're going to move this nuke cannon back to main base to help defend the base against the GLA from the top left corner. Now the GLA doesn't rebuild their production buildings, so what that means is the GLA isn't going to attack from that bottom left corner now. They only have the 1 barracks and the 1 arms dealer for each base. So really all I would need to do is just take out those 2 production buildings, and I could just send all my armies back to main base, but once you take out the arms dealer and the barracks for some of these bases, you could go after the other buildings too, and then that sort of speeds up the process in actually beating the mission. So I ended up sneaking a Dragon tank and a Gatling tank into the GLA base in the top right corner, and I want to just go all the way around and get to that arms dealer. Since I do have the Dragon tank with me, it does mean that it won't take too long to destroy that GLA base. And the GLA are sending Scorpion tanks out, but they're not going for my Dragon tank and Gatling tank, they're just going with the rest of the crowd that's been picked off by the neutron mines. Now with our Dragon tank in the bottom right corner, I just needed to expand the map a little bit. So 1 tunnel network is down. See, for this one I need to take out all the base defenses so then I can get close enough to the arms dealer in the bottom right corner. and I ended up using my neutron mines to try and neutralize those 3 Scorpion tanks. I got 2 of them, but I found that like the less tanks they've got on hand, the more likely I'm going to be in destroying this arms dealer specifically. So I'm making pretty good headway with the GLA bases here, but I still got to be wary of this top left corner base. See, the GLA units can go more for your vehicles rather than your buildings, and there have been cases where, like for example, I've been attacking in the top right corner and I've got Scorpion tanks that want to go for my Dragon tank or my Gatling tank. I'll rush them back to my main base and they'll just drive right past my nuke cannons because they're so fixated on those other vehicles. So you can do some, trickery to try and take out those GLA units without taking a death, but it does also mean you have to move those units all the way back to rejoin your nuke cannons. Alrighty, so right now we've almost taken out that tunnel network there, and I did something pretty reckless here. I decided to go straight for that arms dealer, and here comes the GLA unit, and it turned out it was a bike. And I was actually very relieved to see that, because it's just been Scorpion tanks. So I'm like, okay, if it's just going to be bikes, we need to move in. We got to make this go quick. I really should be firewalling the arms dealer, because that's going to speed up the process, but thankfully it was just combat bikes that got in the way and not Scorpions. If it was Scorpions, I would have been absolutely screwed, and I'd probably have to do that trick I mentioned by moving the Dragon tank and the Gatling tank back to main base, and then hoping that the nuke cannon would be enough to deal with that arms dealer on its own. Now at main base, I got my nuke cannon, I set it to neutron mine, and I set it to auto fire on a black spot on the map near the resources, because that is one of the pathing points of the GLA units from that top left corner. Now I wasn't sure about if money was a factor here, if they had like infinite cash or a limited cash pool, so I'm going to go after the supply stashes and oil derricks too. Now with the nuke cannon, I do want to go for the palace because the palaces are manned and the palaces can get in the way. I don't think you have to destroy the palaces in this mission. You could leave them intact, but some palaces are in the way of other buildings that we do need to destroy, so it is kind of necessary, depending on which base you're going for. So at this point, the GLA attacks are still pretty light with a couple of Scorpion tanks and a Marauder tank, so I felt like this was a good time to just speed through this section. So this section here is just me doing cleanup in the top right corner and the bottom right corner GLA base with our nuke cannons, Gatling tank and Dragon tank. Now my main concern going forward is actually going to be when my reinforcements arrive. So with the reinforcements we will get some helixes, but those helixes will drop off new units. So those newly acquired ground units will get dropped off pretty close to where the front lines are, and the GLA will do one big attack. So I'm concerned that I might lose one of those newly acquired ground units basically as they arrive at my base. So right now we're getting our units from the bottom right corner and the top right corner because we've cleaned up those bases, and they're going to help us in defending the base from those GLA attacks in the top left corner. Now the bottom left corner, again, we've taken out those production buildings, but we still need to take out the other buildings like the command center or the supply stash. So here comes the big attack from the GLA that I mentioned before. So it's mainly infantry and quad cannons and a technical, so not too bad. There is a couple of demo bikes as well, and they're going to go more for my reactors rather than my vehicles, so I'm happy with that. Even if we do lose a reactor and we go offline, we still have our other units to help defend. So here come the units, and the helixes have decided to act straight away without me telling them to, and they've picked off the last of the GLA units. I think my Gatling cannon would have been able to clean up the rest of that just fine, but here's where I get a little bit indecisive. See, I was sort of like, oh, do I use the helixes? Do I use the reinforcements? I was genuinely considering like adding a rule where I don't use the reinforcements for this Deathless mission, but in the end I was like, you know what, I'm probably not going to get RNG this good because I kept getting bad RNG as I mentioned earlier on. So yeah, I gave in and I decided to use the helixes. So with this, the helixes, I'm going to go after the demo traps and also go after like the tunnel network. But yeah, I was just like, ooh, do I go for the Stinger site though? Because if I go to Stinger site, there's also the Palace. The Palace could also shoot down my helixes. So there's a lot of me just humming and hawing with these helixes. And my indecisiveness about adding in the helixes or even using the reinforcements was part of the reason why I put out a poll on YouTube to see if you wanted me to show you this version of China 2 Deathless, or if you wanted me to try and optimize it to make it look better, because I felt like, in my opinion, my indecisiveness kind of made the gameplay a little bit more on the sloppy side, just in this section. I think the other parts of this battle, you know, me going to the GLA bases, I think that's pretty good. But yeah, it was mainly just the helixes. So at this point, the helixes are going to the bottom left corner base. So I was like, ooh, maybe I can go to the bottom left corner, get some veterancy, and then we can go back to take out the Stinger site and the Palace in the top left corner. So that's what I'm saying, is like, I was kind of scared about losing a unit at this point, for sure. But yeah, it's just that indecisiveness about, like, top left, bottom left. What do I do? So yeah, there's going to be a lot of that. So at this point, I moved the helixes back to the top left corner base, and I wasn't going to move them in just yet. I was like, maybe we could use the nuke cannons. Maybe they can snipe the Stinger sites and the Palace, and maybe then we could move the helixes into the GLA base to finish it off. But there's still a risk here, because the GLA from this base still has an arms dealer and a barracks, so they could still send their ground units to attack my nuke cannons, and I just have to hope that my helixes can get there in time to stop them before they can actually hit my nuke cannons. So that was my game plan going forward. So I decided to move in on this tunnel network, and yeah, Stinger site was shooting me, but I was able to get rid of the tunnel network, so there's one less building for the nuke cannons to really get to. But yeah, I nearly lost a helix, so I'm like, okay, maybe not do something like that again, and we'll just let the nuke cannons do the work. Because we got rid of those demo traps, we won't have to worry about, you know, flame walling the area to get rid of those. We can just move the nuke cannons straight in to fire. So while I wait on my nuke cannons to arrive and catch up with the helixes, I noticed that I'd forgotten that I left my troop crawler at the top right corner base. So we're going to get him back to main base. I don't think the GLA would attack it, but I figure we'll get him back to base to make sure he's well defended. Now here I found the nerve to actually attack, and I went for his Stinger site. So I figure if the helix goes into the red or close to it, we'll pull away and then we'll regroup. But we did destroy the Stinger site, and then I felt, well, maybe we don't need our nuke cannons. So we move them all the way back to base. So I was like, yeah, that was kind of a wasted move there. Now, the tunnel network, I noticed that it's actually getting attacked by one of my helixes. So I thought, ooh, maybe we could just hold this position for now. We can take out the tunnel network, and then maybe we can move the helixes in on the Palace, or we can move them on the Stinger site that's further left. There's a lot of things that we could do, and then I'm like, nah, that's not gonna work. Let's move the nuke cannons back in. We do need to take out the Palace. I don't know how many guys are inside the Palace, so let's use the neutron mines, take out the Palace that way, and then we can move in on the barracks and then move left to the arms dealer. And like I said before, the issue with that is going to be the GLA units that attack. So there's going to be the arms dealer and the barracks here, so all of these Scorpion tanks, rocket troops. It does seem that some of these attacks aim more at my main base, but I wanted to take out these units regardless, because I don't know if they're going to make any moves on my nuke cannons. So as soon as one attack ends, another one begins. So this time it's Marauder tanks and Scorpion tanks, and I didn't notice it, and I was about to move my helixes back north to prevent the GLA from rebuilding, and my nuke cannons, I sent them to force fire near the Palace, which means that those tanks would actually attack my nuke cannons because they're getting a bit too close. So with all of that done, this is sort of like an escort mission now, where we just got to make sure that those nuke cannons stay defended and don't die by the GLA units, and we've got to keep the helixes nearby so then we can defend them. Another Marauder tank, and again, I'm not sure if they were going to go for the nuke cannon or if they were going to go for my base. This time they were going to go for my nuke cannon. So yeah, very good escorting by my helixes there. We're almost at the palace, and once we can neutron the palace, then we can move in on the barracks and then move left to get to that arms dealer, preventing the GLA from building any more units. So I didn't have to do this, but I went for the bomb truck anyway with the helixes. I felt like my nuke cannons weren't in any immediate danger, so I felt like I could stray a little bit. Now, I wanted to go for the palace, but then I actually noticed that my nuke cannons were getting a little bit close to that tunnel network there, so I was like, okay, fine. We'll use the nuke cannons to go for the tunnel network, then we'll go for the palace with the neutron shells, and then that way we can move the helixes in to get rid of that barracks. So with the neutron shells unmanning that palace and us going for the barracks, it means that that palace will no longer be a threat because the GLA won't be able to re-garrison the palace. And that is something that the GLA can do in this mission. They will re-garrison the palace with their rocket troops. So just got to be aware of that. That's something I noticed in the China 2 but harder video that I did. I ended up losing a nuke cannon because of it, but luckily I wasn't doing that deathless, so that was fine. Now, just going for these Scorpion tanks because they're getting pretty close to my nuke cannon now. So just like with the top right corner and the bottom right corner bases, I'm going to speed through this section because now we're just doing cleanup with our helixes as well as our nuke cannons for the base defenses. So now I can finally take out this arms dealer. That's going to be all 4 arms dealers and all 4 barracks now destroyed, and the GLA cannot build any more units because they don't rebuild their production buildings. Gonna go for the command center next, and I'm gonna let the nuke cannons deal with the base defenses. They're going to send out some Scorpion tanks to my main base to attack me, and surprisingly enough, the Scorpion tanks did actually do some damage, and they did destroy my reactor, taking me offline. And they did have a couple of rocket troops here. So I ended up doing a bit of quick thinking. I sold off one of my other Gatling cannons to get my power back online. I could have also done the overcharge with the reactor. That could have worked too. But that reactor was kind of low health too. So I'm not sure how long that would have lasted. I would have had to have checked on the reactor beforehand. And with this supply stash being destroyed, we can now get our helixes back to our base. And then we can think of a strategy as to how we deal with the bottom left corner base. So the bottom left corner base is something that I felt I had to be a bit more delicate with because there's going to be a listening outpost a little bit to the left of that. And if you get too close to the listening outposts, it does mean that the GLA and Chinese units will spawn, and then you'll lose Chinese units, which will count as units lost. So I thought the better method would be to actually use the nuke cannons to destroy a lot of the GLA base this time instead of the helixes. See, the helixes, they reveal more of the map compared to other units that I've got to work with, so I felt like they would be more likely to trigger the listening outpost units from spawning compared to my nuke cannons. So that's why I'm using more nuke cannons over helixes. So now I'm just playing the waiting game with these nuke cannons. I could have moved in sooner with the helixes because the anti-air wasn't that strong, but I was still very cautious of triggering that listening outpost to the left of that GLA base. Now I did decide to move in with the helixes in the end to destroy the demo traps and the tunnel network next to the command center, but I didn't want to go any further left than that. So we're going to use the nuke cannons to move in on the command center as well as the other buildings here. I'm going to use a nuke cannon to also use the neutron shell on the palace to unman it. So I could also use the helixes to go for the palace now, and that's exactly what I did. And this is how I did China Mission 2 Deathless without capturing any buildings, without losing buildings, without building buildings or units, and without occupying unmanned vehicles. So if you enjoyed this one, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I do have a playlist if you want to check out any other content. I'm Cracklow. See you next time. Bye.